Good morning. Welcome to Acorn Alley. We're glad you could join us this morning. Today, we have sort of something special for you. We have, among other things, two guests, one on my left and one on my right, and you'll meet them in a little bit. What we hope to do this morning, and what we hope to have you do along with us, is to begin celebrating the Bicentennial. What's a Bicentennial? Let's see if any of these kids here know what a Bicentennial is. What's a Bicentennial?
A 200th anniversary.
200th anniversary of what?
Of our land.
Of our land.
Country.
All right. 200th anniversary of our country. And I think it's sort of appropriate to be talking about this and beginning this celebration as we're beginning to move into Independence Day celebration weekend, don't you? Now, one of the things that is a part of our land, has been, and hopefully still is, and will be, is the fact that though we've got 50 different states and a couple 100 million different people, we are one. We're Americans, of lots of different backgrounds, varieties of countries. We look different, we act different, we talk different, but we are one. And you can join in singing along with us if you would like as we sing, We Are One. Okay, kids? Now, during the week, you kids have been doing some special work, right? Mary Jo, welcome over here. Would you like to introduce the special work that these kids have been doing?
What the kids have done this week, they're celebrating a festival or a celebration at St. Mark's Lutheran Church. And we're using that church as an example of what you could do at your churches during the coming year. They have done some research, two different things. They've done research into the different religions that have come to the state of Ohio, and they have also done some research by looking at old pictures of their own church and have drawn placemats to show us the different pictures. These are just two ways that the kids from St. Mark's Lutheran have done it. Those of you that did the map, why don't you put the map down there and show the kids at home what you've done and explain it to us, because we haven't seen what you've done either.
And while you're getting ready, I might just mention that this is one of the ways that churches can help celebrate and participate in the Bicentennial celebration. Learn a little bit about your own history and maybe how it fits into the larger picture. Okay, kids. You ready?
Allison, you're in front there. Why don't you start out?
Okay, just a second. Okay, the religion that I studied was the Methodist religion. And I found out that they first originated from England. And the Methodist Society, it was organized by the Reverend John Cobbler of Kentucky. And since we don't have Kentucky over here, I'm just going to stick it right here. And let's see. One of the first preachings was done in Warrenton, Jefferson County in 1797. Another one of the first preachings was done in the southwest portion of the Ohio River, and it was in Fort Washington near the Miami River in 1793. Okay, and then in 1812, the first Methodist conference was held in Chillicothe.
Beautiful, Allison. That covered what religion?
Methodist.
Methodist. Okay, and what year did it start?
Oh, I don't know if I can remember.
Did you forget? In Kentucky.
Some guy from Kentucky, right?
Okay. Go ahead, Lori.
Okay, the religion I studied about were the Presbyterians, and they first came to Ohio, well, it was formed in Ohio in 1787 by a New England clergyman named Mammoser. And most of the people were Scottish and Irish immigrants who came to Ohio in the late 1700s. Some other immigrants were Cumberland Presbyterians who had their beginnings in Kentucky and Tennessee. And then there's Cincinnati. These was where the first presbyteries were. Cincinnati in 1821. Oxford in 1829. Well, Oxford in 1829. Columbus in 1821. Worcester in 1834. And Athens in 1821.
Those are all the different presbyteries?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that was the Presbyterians.
Good.
Now we have the Methodists and the Presbyterians all set. Which one's next?
What do you have, Luke? You forgot what religion it was? No. Where did it start? Maybe we can help you guess. Do you girls remember which religion it was that you
I
researched?
think it was Disciples of Christ.
Disciples of Christ, okay.
Okay.
All right, can you tell us where they all are?
Yeah.
Where it started?
In 1789, the Mennonites settled in Fairfield County. In 1800, the Quakers settled in Mount Pleasant in Jefferson County. The Disciples of Ohio started in Bethesda Congregation in Portage County Baptist Church, July 30th, 1808.
Okay.
I think I know why you had trouble remembering that. You had several different ones, not just one. Mennonites, Quakers, Disciples. And did I hear you say Baptist too?
Baptist Church.
Oh, in a Baptist church.
Disciples of Ohio started in Bethesda Congregation,
Bethesda.
Portage County
okay.
Baptist Church, July 30th, 1808.
Okay. Yeah, you had several of them.
Okay, Jenny, what did you have?
Okay, I studied the Lutherans and the Catholics, and I'm going to tell about two Catholic churches.
Okay.
First of all, I'm going to talk about the Lutheran religion. The first recorded religious work was done in Ohio. Forgetting it.
Forget what city it was
It had
in?
something to do with Lutheran.
Oh, just,
That's the church.
just put up what you
Well,
remember.
I'll
then.
tell about the churches then. In 1913,
That was the other one.
Will your flags help you at all?
Tuscarawas County.
Just put up the flags that you have and tell us what you remember by looking at the flags.
The first recorded religious work was done in the first recorded religious work in Ohio was done by the Moravian Missions in Tuscarawas County, 1771. This area was later the scene of numerous Lutheran congregations.
Why don't you help her, Laurie?
Somebody want to help her there?
Okay. Then in 1913, this was the St. Francis de Sales Church. The St. Francis de Sales Church was built on
Is that here in Toledo?
what? Yeah, the St.
St.
Francis de
Toledo
Sales.
was the first Catholic church
I
here?
think it was, forget it.
Okay,
See, the
just put it up here by Toledo then.
I think the Catholics, they bought it from the Presbyterians. Yeah, in 1841, the Catholics bought the church from the Presbyterians. And then in 1913, they needed a church because the St. Francis de Sales was expanding and everything. So then they built the Holy Rosary Cathedral in 1922, and they started fundraising in 1922, and in 1931 it was built.
Okay. Thank you, kid.
Oh, I just have one more thing. This has something to do with St. Mark's and St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Well, in 1880, around the 1880s, St. Paul's was the big Lutheran church that most of the Toledoans went to, and it was here in downtown Toledo. And they needed a new church because what happened was the bridge kept washing out and the people couldn't get there on Sundays to go to church. So they built St. Mark's over here on the other side, and it was built in 1884, and now people have a choice of two churches to go to.
St. Mark's and St. Paul's. The range is stay on the other side of the river, right?
At first wasn't it called St. Mark's?
Or you want to put the map back here? And those of you that did the placemats, go over real quickly to the bulletin board because we want to talk to Mrs. Coring. So go over to show them real quickly what you did over there.
You guys move back.
Okay, this is one of the present churches of St. Mark's. It's a drawing of it. And this is a drawing of the old church of St. Mark's.
This is the present, and this is old. This is the real old one, and this is the new one.
You know, I bet sometimes maybe during the next year, if you have a church supper or something like that, you know, maybe whoever's in charge can hire you kids to draw the placemats.
Ain't doing it.
You don't think you're the artist? These pictures that I have here are the pictures that the children took from. This is the first church in Parsonage in 1884, and this is the present day, an older picture, but of the present day church. Thank you. Cal, you want to talk to our guest?
Yes. You know, I thought that was an interesting story where, you know, building across on the other side of the Maumee River because the bridge kept washing out. One of our guests may know a little bit more about that, being a little bit closer to that time. Not right there, but closer. We have Mrs. Mildred Coring, who's one of our special guests this morning. Mrs. Coring, welcome.
Very glad to be here, I'm sure.
Now, would you like to share with us a little bit of the history of St. Mark's as you can perhaps remember it?
I've been a member of St. Mark's all my life, so I should know a little about it. And I'm going to start out the same way that Laurie did. They did have two Lutheran churches, Salem Lutheran and St. Paul's Lutheran, but they were both across the river. And on February the 10th, 1883, this disastrous flood destroyed the bridge, the only link that they had going from the east to the west. The matter of a Lutheran church became a very critical thing at that time, so they talked about building a new church on the east side. And on January the 20th, 1884, 22 staunch Lutheran Christians met at the home of Michael Lintner near Oak Street. And my grandfather, Chris Cacker, and his brother, John Cacker, were two of the 22 men who met there. And here the organization was effected and a constitution was adopted, the original of which I have with me right here. At that time, there were about 4,000 people living on East Toledo. Services were first held in what they called Temperance Hall at the corner of Oak and Woodville Street. Now, as I understand it, this was a favorite and much used meeting place, and it was used for many things. Here, this dedicated group of people met each Sunday morning from January 27th, 1884 until November the 2nd, 1884. But on November the 9th, 1884, the German Evangelical Lutheran Church for the East Side was dedicated, which is now our St. Mark's Church. This was dedicated to the service of the Triune God. Pastor C.F. Hübner was the first pastor. Worship services were held in this wooden constructed building on the corner of Woodville and Elmore Street until August 26, 1917, when the old church was moved to the back and the new church, the present St. Mark's Church, made of stone, was dedicated. The old church was used as a parish hall. On November the 7th, 1926, a parsonage facing Woodville Street, right next to the church, was dedicated. The parsonage was built of stone to match the church, and our beloved Reverend A.L. Berman, who had been serving us since June 16, 1912, proudly moved into his new residence. In 1951, the old parish house, our first St. Mark's Church, was torn down and a new over $300,000 educational building was built. On November the 2nd, 1952, Reverend Venix Van Scoy was installed due to the retirement of Dr. A.L. Berman, who had served us for 40 years. On September the 19th, 1954, we celebrated our 70th anniversary. And on the 13th of September 1959, we dedicated a $40,000 pipe organ. And on September 27th, 1959, we celebrated our 75th anniversary. Our latest project, not yet completed, is connecting the parsonage to the church, installing a chapel, meeting rooms, and in the parsonage. Our present pastors, Dr. David Lynn and Reverend Otto Baumann, are presently in charge. In anticipation, and God willing, we look forward to celebrating our 100th anniversary in 1984.
And I'll bet you would have an awful lot of stories to go along with those dates.
I sure have.
Our time is running a little bit fast. Do you have a couple of pictures there that
yes, I do.
Might like to show that might be of interest?
This is the old church. And this is a copy of the Sunday Times, September 30th, 1934, showing both the old and the new church. And I might add that I have been teaching Sunday school over there for 55 years.
And if you weren't going to say that, I was going to.
Right. You know, what Mildred has given you a thorough history of St. Mark's Lutheran would be very easy for kids to do all during the next year, during the bicentennial year. It's done for you. Maybe you can help her, but all of you at home could do it at your own churches. I think what we best do now is to go to our next guest.
That sounds like a good idea. We have as our second guest this morning, Mr. Rick Corbett. And I'm not sure what his exact title is, but he's something like in charge or the chairperson
Mr. Bicentennial
of the Toledo Bicentennial celebration. Rick, welcome to Acorn Alley, and what do you have to show and share with us?
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here as a member of the panel, I guess. I just want to say that I think the children know much more about church history than I'll ever hope to know, and I think you did a very good job with your display earlier. The bicentennial, I think, is an important time for us to not only look back at what happened 200 years ago related to our churches, but also what is happening or what had happened during the past 200 years. You know, so often we take for granted that now we have television and radio and easy communications. Take toys, for example, and the games that children play nowadays. What kinds of toys do you have in your own homes? What are some of the toys that you have? What do you have?
Evil.
He's got an Evil Knievel. What are some of the other things that you have in your own homes? Monopoly. What else? Bikes, bicycles, G.I. Joes, all kinds of...
Barbie dolls.
Baseball, Barbie dolls, all kinds of different things. Well, you know the kinds of things that they played with 200 years ago? You want to hear some of the names of the toys? A whirligig and a whimmy-diddle.
How many of you have whirligigs and whimmy-diddles?
This, for your information, is a whirligig. It was just a wood carving from soft pine wood, and the children would hold it in their hand, and they would run along, and the wind would blow the arms around. Some of the other games and toys that they had back 200 years ago was a G-haw whimmy-diddle, which was a propeller twig that they would blow along in the breeze as they would run along. So you see, things have changed an awful lot since the G.I. Joe, during the G.I. Joe days, haven't they? Don't you think?
Rick, I bet these toys, their dads or grandpas made for them.
I would guess...
You know, more than a mass production of the toys that we have now.
Right. Some of the other things that children 200 years ago played with, each young boy, about the age that you young boys are, would try to save his pennies to purchase a little knife, a wood carving knife. And he would carve wood carvings into caricatures of birds that he would see in the meadows and the fields and things of that nature. Certainly a lot different than what we're used to nowadays.
You know, it might be an idea during the centennial year to make all the toys or the gifts that you give away as presents. If you're going to a birthday party, why not make something?
That's
or
right.
Girls bake something. Forget the mass-produced things. Go back 200 years and carve something out or bake or sew.
Right. They would make little bird caricatures, not only out of pine bark, but pine cones and all kinds of different things. Some of the things that some of our school children are doing in the community for the bicentennial celebration, a group of first and second graders at Mayfair School just recently recaptured the art of quilt making and made a patchwork quilt in red, white, and blue, with each of the patches embroidered the outline of the 50 states and what that state was noted for. Mayfair School also was involved in a bicentennial mural painting on their library media center, depicting various symbols of the important and significant periods throughout our history. Some of the things that other church groups are getting involved in, a group at Christ Presbyterian Church, the children are going back and researching some of the historic prayers of our time and some of the historic orations made by interesting historic figures, and actually reenacting these historic orations and historic prayers during the church services. So there are a number of different ways that you can become involved. Through our Parks and Recreation division here, their Parks program has an arts and crafts program, and you can redo some of our early American crafts, such as quilt making, candle making, making dolls out of corn shucks, and all kinds of caricatures of this type on our playground, so you can get involved that way.
Are any of you kids involved in the playground program this summer yet? Around you? What
Not
parks
yet.
are around there? Must have parks around there.
This is our Toledo Bicentennial symbol, and all activities in Toledo that are part of the Bicentennial celebration will bear this symbol and will be identified by the use of this symbol. These are some of the...
Yeah, I was going to say, you have
we
some
do.
interesting
Cool.
flags there I'd like to learn about.
Okay,
Time, sure, go right.
do any of you know what any of these flags, these are early revolutionary flags, do any of you know what they represent? Who knows what one of those flags is? Go ahead, go up and point it out.
This flag right here for the 13 stars represents the first 13 colonies.
Why
Why don't you
stay
pull
there,
it out,
honey? Yeah.
pull it out and show them at home. It comes right out at the base, right.
There it comes.
That's the 13 colonies.
Okay.
That was done by Betsy Ross, right? That was commissioned in 1777. Who else knows what a flag is? Who else knows something about the flags there?
Can I keep this?
That's the only set I have. Who else knows? Okay, what about, let's see. What about this flag? Somebody knew this flag earlier.
Does that stand for Rhode Island?
That's the Rhode Island state flag. Why don't you show that one? That's the Rhode Island state flag.
Why Rhode Island, Rick?
Beats me.
I mean, why is that part of the display? Why do they have...
Well, it's just a display of flags of our early history.
Oh, okay.
And some of the things that the early states used to identify an early part of their history.
Well, then there's Maine and Canada and Britain.
Well, that's...
Right?
Well, no.
I didn't know what you were doing.
This is the Bunker Hill flag. This was flown during the Battle of Bunker Hill. This was the second flag, the 15 states at the time.
And I like that yellow one up front that says, don't tread on me.
That's the rattlesnake flag. That was flown on all early American naval vessels.
Not spend a good Hugh Blunt.
Right.
Okay, I think that as, you know, all of us during the Bicentennial, it's kind of an important time to just go back and look at some of our early history. And there are a number of books available in the library so that you can just become familiar what 200 years of democracy has been all about. Some of these books are The Story of the 13 Colonies, The People of Concord, where a lot of the early revolutionary activity had happened. Let's see, Home and Child Life in the Colonial Days. Basically, it surveys what home life was for young boys and girls without electricity and without telephones and the modern toys that we know today.
Hey, and I'll bet that you'd find that one really interesting, to find out how different life was all through the years than it is today. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Mrs. Coring, for being with us. Let's sing our theme song, shall we? Preachers for life. Preachers for life. Let us celebrate the beauty of our life today. Let us sing out the wonder of each moment. Let us search out the mystery that you and us see. Let us celebrate and recreate. Let us do and be and make this world a place of love and joy. Preachers for life. Preachers for life. Oh, let us celebrate the beauty of our life today. Let us sing out the wonder of each moment. Let us search out the mystery that's you and that's me. Let us celebrate and recreate. Let us do and be and make this world a place of love and joy. Preachers for life. Preachers for life.
He almost went off the ramp, just misses the wall, and remember, he has to keep his car going to make it official. Look at that rear wheel. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Take it easy. Take it easy. Watch your legs. Watch your legs, Ken. Just jumped 13 cars, ladies and gentlemen. Ken Powers coming over to congratulate him. Watch your leg. Watch your leg. Watch your leg. Watch your leg. Watch Palmer. Yes, there it is. Very great. Congratulations, Ken.
Let me get down. Let me get down.
All right. Now, whoa. I know it. Are you all right?
I did it. Dick, Corbeil, come here. It's a miracle, baby. I looked at these people up there, Bud, and I said they sit and waited long enough, and I stuck in the wood, and I got it to the last 5 feet.
What was your speed? Did you get up to 87?
I looked at the speedometer, and I was doing 85 when I left the top of the ramp. Oh, wow.
85. You made it easily.